The story begins when Jamie Welton wakes up from a horrible dream. He is the Earl household's firstborn child and heir to the Seldom Kingdom. He recalls the time when he first opened his eyes. His parents were very happy to see him. His mother says he has the same facial features as his father. He has lived for 9 years as a young noble son to loving parents. He has a feeling it will be a tiresome day today again. His nanny comes to see him and says he should be getting dressed as the master and the lady are waiting for him. She calls him a young master. Then she takes him with her to the dining table where everyone is waiting for him. His mother says to his father that their babies are just too adorable. They must have gotten their cute looks from their father. His mother, Sears Bell Welton, is the sole daughter of the great Bell household. His father, Earl Argina Welton, is one of the only 5 sword masters within the kingdom. He serves Sarah Welton's favorite food to her. She is his only sister. After breakfast, he again goes to his room and takes some rest. He says his current powers are so damnably weak, although his power is still at this level, because dark magic is not practiced in this era. Time is absolutely on his side. Nenny arrives and says it is story time with the lady. He then goes to listen to the story. Mother tells them the story of Heinz the Great Mage. Then he goes to the library and reads books. When he comes out of the library, he sees an old man with a tremendous amount of mana. He must be at least a rank 7 mage according to him. An old man also observes and becomes surprised that a 9-year-old child has too much mana. Earl Argina Welton arrives there. Old man observes this kid is acting innocent in front of his father. Earl Argina welcomes an old man, Marquis Rimmel, who is a rank 8 great mage and is renowned as the most powerful mage in the entire world. Marquis tells him that he doesn't know much about his son and also declines his request to take him as his pupil. When Earl Argino asks the reason for this, Marquis says he is refusing to take him as his pupil because he cannot handle him. He says earlier when he cast a spell on him, he was completely appalled at how he was looking straight at the spell coming at him. Marquis further says he does not need a teacher. He is a phenomenon. He will develop to be a complete mage on his own and may even become a rank 9 mage that has only existed in the legends. Earl Argino becomes surprised that his son has the potential to become a legendary rank 9 mage. Marquis also says that the magical society that the entire world will soon be affected by what is to come. Then he gifted Jamie a book of magic and says the mana breathing technique he used is outdated, so he is given this book as a gift so that he can learn more. That book holds secrets to the mana breathing technique he created by himself, and Jamie is the first person to get this book from him. Mana breathing is oral breathing through the lungs, allowing the user to absorb and gather mana in the heart. It is known to be the most efficient method, although its limitations on the amount are a big disadvantage. The next day, when Earl Argino comes to his room, he becomes surprised that his little boy has too much potential as the mana is gushing from within his body. He orders Nanny to leave him be the entire day and does have the staff stand by, however, since he comes outside anytime. Later on, when Jamie comes out of that state, he thinks breaking down mana while moving was difficult at first, as it was an action out of the ordinary. But now that he is used to it, it's a piece of cake. Then he goes to see his father, and when he arrives there, he sees a man going outside after having a meeting with his father. He says he knows this crescent moon symbol in a yellow sphere of his hoodie and could feel the dirty vicarial powers stemming out of his old flesh. He becomes furious and says how dare Zenith attempt to set foot in his land. He becomes astonished that why his father trying to establish faith in the estate all of a sudden and decides to investigate it. His father says if he wishes to stop studying magic, he may choose to do so at any time. However, as long as he is passionate about it, he will be supported by all means, but he says he will never quit it. Earl Argino becomes happy with his answer and thinks he could feel that Jamie keeps absorbing more and more mana, in addition to the magical energy stored in his entire body. When he puts his hand on Jamie's head, he feels some kind of creature. He says it is something sphere in shape. On asking, Jamie says father cannot see it as it was secretly created by him and was completely under the effect of the invisibility spell. He has named it as Black. His father appreciates him and says he is happily shocked by his talent. On the other side, a sub-executive of the criminal organization Rebel, Philip, and a member of this organization Jans are talking about their boss and saying he is simply lining his own pote at the expense of half of the organization. Earl Argino lets criminal bands get away with a lot of things as long as they don't cross the line in Heist. But human trafficking is an act of crushing the line, let alone crossing it. They realize someone is listening to their talk secretly. Jamie appears there and says they were talking about something interesting and he would like to hear that. When they tell him, he says human trafficking is the type of crime father abhors the most. He says it will be a tumultuous night and orders them to run to the Earl household at once and reveal every detail of the plan. Then suddenly, more members of the criminal organization Reborn arrive there. A sub-executive of the organization, Hanny, says Jamie to hand over those two members back to him. When he allows taking their people, they then attack him. Jamie defends and then tells Hanny that the mental toughness of a human being deteriorates at a tremendous rate at the sight of a being more powerful than he. That's why he also loves toying with the brain of someone weaker than he is, so he takes Hanny down so easily. Other people say he is a monster. Jamie then holds his hair and says to answer all the questions. When Hanny tells him that his boss wanted little children, Jamie concludes that he didn't have any new information. This is only a waste of time. He can notify the father of the human trafficking operation through those two guys. Then he says it's been a while since he last used necromancy. Necromancy is the power to reanimate and control the dead. Although it is similar to raising the dead, it is not the same. It's because the dead reanimated through necromancy is no longer a living creature. It is going against the heavenly will and defying the law of nature. He says both of them will be his loyal servants from now on and live life beyond death. They say they are at his command from now, master. After some time, he realizes that they will be of no use to me like this. They won't even be able to carry out everyday actions such as going to a restaurant, let alone infiltrating the temple of Zenith while fuming smoke like this. But they bowed in front of him, so they decided to grant them new identities. He named them Azar Jans and Riza Philip. He knows they will be confused for a while, so he should give them some time until they get the hang of the situation. He knows as long as the contract is still in place, their souls are his. That is the nature of dark magic. They call him a demon king, but he says he is not that, but a dark mage that once attempted to slay the gods. Then he assigns them two tasks. First is to keep eye on the faith in Zenith and gather information, and the second is to find and bring someone that knows quite a bit about this human trafficking operation. They say his commands must absolutely be obeyed and then go. Jamie also comes back and says he has tightened the bond of subordination. There will be no disobedience. Father will then take care of the rest of the human trafficking case naturally. When he reaches home, he goes to his room and takes some rest. He says things will get quite busy now. There goes his relaxed and laid-back way of life after reincarnation. On the other side, Azar Jans comes to this old place and asks about the big boss. One of his fellows becomes surprised that how can he still be alive when Hanny went out to kill both of them by himself. Jans hit a punch on his face and again asks about the boss, but he says he doesn't know of his whereabouts either. Philip believes there is a high chance the boss would know about the faith in Zenith since he gets reports on pretty much everything that happens within the city. Their fellow says as the boss likes women and drinking, so they may spot him in one of the pubs that they manage. Jans hit him again and says they might as well bring him over to the master to be the whistleblower. They took him and hide someplace. When Jamie wakes up the next morning, he joins his family at the dining table. Jamie is being informed that they are going to the ball tomorrow, a large-scale ball Sub-Zero hosted by Earl Simon and Earl Welton. Most nobles belonging to the eastern part of the kingdom seldom must attend. Sylvie is also going with them, Mother says. After that, he comes to meet Riza and Azar and asks about the given tasks. They say they have no information about the faith in Zenith as of yet. Their order was only very recently established, so it would be difficult to gather useful information within a day, even for an executive of Sable. When he asks about another task, they say they bring their fellow here. This scum knew of Hanny's plan to murder them. He is a perfect insider then, but he says he doesn't know anything. But if they set him free, he will find where the boss is. Just let him go unharmed. Jamie asks him to head to the Earl's household once and report the activities of his organization, and then asks Azar and Riza to leave the city and hide somewhere safe. He says his father will obliterate the gang of Sable from the face of the world, and so the existence of two members abandoned by their organization will be forgotten easily amid the chaos. He then comes back home. That night, the Welton household was in a great uproar. An executive of Sable, a sizable criminal organization based in Heist, had blown the whistle. In response, the Earl had to postpone his departure until he took care of this issue. The next day, Jamie along with his mother and sister starts a journey to the ball. When he says Reason is indeed amazing, his mother tells him it is the largest city of commerce in the kingdom. The biggest contributor to the wealth of the kingdom of Selvum is the city of Reason after all. Jamie says his heart is going pit-a-pat because he is so excited about meeting Earl Simon. His mother tells him that Earl Simon is a remarkable person. He became a rank 7 great mage when he was just around Daddy's age. He is also one of the 2 most prominent nobles in the eastern region and the Lord of Reason. His magic resembles a beautiful red lotus flower, hence the nickname Red Lotus Mage. When they reach there, they are welcomed by a man who escorted them to the castle. After taking a rest for a time, they get ready to meet with other people. When Sears Belle Welton gets ready, 2 servants praise her beauty. After that, they all go to the ballroom of Earl Simon's castle. Reel Van Hare, a humble servant in charge of administrative duties in the Reason estate, welcomes everyone to the ball hosted by the Simon household and asks everyone to be seated in their designated seats. Earl Simon then arrives and also welcomes guests. When he asks about Earl Welton, Sears Belle says he would arrive tonight as he had to take care of some business back at the estate. Then she introduces her children to him. When Simon leaves the ballroom and joins his family at the dining table, his son asks him about Jamie Welton. Simon's wife asks his son to try to maintain a good relationship with him as they have been in alliance with the Weltons for a long time now. Son says he will do that, but from inside, he has no intention of befriending a twerp like him at all. On the other side, Jamie is also advised by his mother to make a lot of friends, but Jamie plans to make use of this alone time. Simon believes that Jamie must be quite talented in doing business as well as magic. Looking at signs of having developed his talents to the maximum like this, Jamie finds a quiet place so he goes there. While moving, he is stopped by a girl who appears from behind suddenly. She introduces herself as Ash Ballet, the second eldest daughter to the Ballet household and an elementalist. Elementalist is a term referring to casters that have signed a contract and are regarded so highly that they can be given the barons just for being elementalists. When she asks about his identity, he introduces himself as heir to the Welton household. On the other side, Earl Argino scolds a man for running a human trafficking operation on his land and orders him to hang him tomorrow. Then he gets ready for departure to the ball. When Simon's daughter wishes to make him a friend, Jamie says to look for someone else, but he doesn't make friends. She says he is so mean and goes away. Jamie thinks having friends or caring for others, that's a quick way to lose objectivity. When he comes back, he is stopped by the son of Earl Simon, who says as Jamie, and he will be the most prominent noble in the eastern region in the future, so they should start building their friendship at an early age. When Jamie says he is not interested in his offer, he becomes furious and says first he will crush him and his mage, so that Jamie will have no choice but to become his subordinate. He then uses an artifact of illusion, but Jamie breaks his spell and fights back. From his attacks, they all get injured. Simon's son becomes astonished at who taught him magic like that as he has so many powers. At night, when Earl Argino arrives there, Simon greets him personally. Then they go inside and discuss the meeting earlier at the ball. Simon says Earl's son is a child of remarkable talent. In fact, he is literally wondrous. When Earl asks him does he seem a little gifted in his eyes too, Simon says he is overloaded with talent. Earl Argino tells him that he says the same thing Marcus Rimmel has said. He further tells him that even Marquis declined to take him as his pupil. Simon says that is not surprising, as his boy is a genius of unparalleled talent. He will develop on his own and will eventually challenge himself to become a rank 9 mage, which exists only in legends. Simon says further that humans are too weak, although they are said to have built a wonderful civilization. As a matter of fact, compared to dragons, high elves, or lands, human mages are too vulnerable. Mankind is currently barely able to maintain the balance only thanks to sword masters like Earl. But if there was a rank 9 mage, even dragons, the most powerful magical creatures, would not scorn them. Simon strongly wishes for humans to be the master race of this world. Then he says Earl to take some rest and that he will see him again tomorrow. After that, Earl comes to Jamie's room, finds him asleep, and says he is concerned to know that Jamie has been superfluously gifted. The next morning, when Jamie is sitting in the ballroom, Ash Ballet comes. James says he is leaving. He has no intention of being in her company. Rebecca Ballet, the eldest daughter of the Ballet household, also arrives there. He becomes shocked to see her because she was Jane in her past life and was the girl whom Jamie had loved a lot in his previous life. Suddenly, Simon's son also comes there and says now Jamie can't escape from his attack. He uses a Phoenix Raid spell, which is a rank 6 spell created by his father only. He believes it is not something a puny geek like Jamie can nullify. Their parents arrive there soon. Earl Argano says it's enough now. Everything will be alright. Simon appreciates the way Jamie defends that spell and says although that spell was only at about half of the original power, thanks to Alf's magical incompetence. Otherwise, the ballroom would have been incinerated to ashes. When Simon's wife blames Jamie for hurting his son, Sable says it was Alf that attacked first. He picked a fight with Jamie and cast an offensive spell against him through the artifact. Simon apologizes to Lady Welton for this and also offers his sincere apologies to everyone there, and then asks them to take a good night's rest. When they go inside, Lady Simon says he should have been on his side even if he was in the wrong first. Simon scolds his sons for doing this and says his rash reactions would have had in the entire kingdom, let alone the eastern region. Son says he just wanted to teach that punk a lesson. On asking, he also tells his father that his brother, Lennon, gave him an artifact that contained the Phoenix Raid spell. When Lennon comes, he says he gave it to his brother because it was hard for him to see his brother get outmaneuvered by a little punk like Jamie. Simon says as both of them probably have already felt that they are the least of his concerns. The reason for this is that they do not possess the talent he desires from his children. However, that doesn't mean he is not well aware of their intentions. He then says if they truly want his recognition, instead of doing such idiotic things like this, prove that his blood runs in their veins. Then he leaves by saying that make sure the first thing they do tomorrow is apologize to Jamie Welton. On the other side, Sable thinks although the spell Jamie cast at Alf was really intended to kill him if the power within the artifact was released in full, she can't forgive him even though Earl Simon has apologized. When she goes, Jamie wakes up and says he understands his parents' concerns. He did lose control of himself after seeing Jane. It is hard to believe for him that she has incarnated too. Maybe reincarnation isn't so uncommon, judging from how he came back to life after all these years. That would explain her reincarnation, however. She did not recognize him, meaning she has no memory of her past life. Unlike him, he decides to talk to her in person. The next day, when many of the guests have left already, he runs to meet her before departure. He finds her on the lawn. She asks him if everything is alright as he seems troubled. Jamie says everything is alright now. Rebecca says her father always said troubles go away if these are shared with people around. From their discussion, Jamie realizes that she is not the same. She is a different person now. After some time, Jamie says goodbye and comes back. On his way back, he realizes that he forgot to tell her that she should call him Jamie instead of addressing him as young master. It's a little difficult to approach Rebecca in a casual way somehow, perhaps because she seems mature. When he reaches the castle, he finds sons of Simon's waiting for him. When Alf, the younger son, says sorry to him, Jamie understands they came to apologize at Earl Simon's orders. He then introduces his brother, Lennon, and says it was he who gave him the magical artifact. Jamie thinks Lennon has so much talent, much better than that of Alf, and he appears to have the intelligence of a human. He also says that this son didn't even show up in the scene during the scuffle yesterday. It looks like he treats Jamie and Alf alike with contempt, probably everyone else besides his father in a condescending manner. There is a potential for him to cause a bit of trouble later on. Then he says to Alf that it looks like he will have a tough time fighting for his position in the household. Jamie asks about Lennon's opinion on it, but he replies rudely, it's not his business. Soon he realizes his father has said he won't give a second chance to them, so he bows down and again apologizes to Jamie. The next day, when they were ready to leave, Simon tells Jamie that he seems a bit unsettled. But he says not at all. In fact, he is happy that he will be returning home to get some rest. Simon says he may stay longer if he desires, but he denies it and says he only desires to go back and get rest. Simon tells him that the magical society took notice of him. Jamie says that his son Lennon seemed to have quite a talent for magic. He may turn out to be decent if gets training from his father. He may have potential to be as powerful as Simon someday, but cannot blossom under all this pressure. Both of his sons have taken the wrong path because he belittled them for their lack of talent. Then Jamie says his goodbye and departs. After his departure, Simon thinks about his words and says those are bittersweet. After coming back, he goes to meet Azard and Riza. He is being told that the Order of Zenith has been showing generosity by conducting charity work in various parts of Heist. They won the hearts of people by giving food to the hungry and providing shelter to the homeless, and it is said they recently started operating an orphanage as well. After Earl Welton completely obliterated the criminal gang Reborn 2 months ago, the followers of Zenith began propagating their faith. Faith in Zenith is regarded as the most merciful and respectable religion in all of Heist at the moment. Jamie says they must be devising a scheme behind all those good deeds to find out what they are up to. On the other side, the orphanage is established and run by Ricky by the Order of Zenith. Ricky gets appreciation for running it well. Since Ricky has been accepted into the orphanage about a month and a half ago, his life has been full of happiness. His little sister, Anna, is sightless. He did everything to protect her, but no one cared enough, so one day they were shown kindness by someone and he brought them to an orphanage where they are given new life. The next morning, when Jamie reaches the dining table, he sees a guest with yellow-colored hair who is paying his gratitude to the Earl as he would have died on the streets if the guards of the Earl wouldn't have picked him up. Jamie doesn't like the frankness between that guy and his parents and says he is getting on his nerves now. That person tells Earl that he is Lars Armeg, who serves Pero, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment. Seer Bell says it is surprising indeed and tells him that she belongs to the Bell household. Lars stands up and knees down in front of her and says it's an honor to have met her. When Earl inquires him about his reason for arriving here, he says he was simply tracing the footsteps of someone that conducts horrendous and inhumane experiments that are forbidden and ended up here. He is a chimera maker. A chimera, by definition, is a being artificially created by combining the strengths of many different creatures. Earl asks him who is he that dares to come here. Lars says this is top secret and he cannot share the details with anyone except those that promise to assist. Earl says although it is difficult for him to fully commit anything, however, considering the relationship between his wife's household and the Order of Faith in Pero, he cannot just let it aside. Then Lars becomes so happy to know that he would get help from Earl. When Jamie asks about relationships between Mother's household and the Paladin guy's order, she says her granddaddy happens to have a benefactor of the Order of the Faith in Pero. She further tells there was a time when a very important treasure of the Order of the Faith in Pero was stolen and Mommy's granddaddy helped recover the item. When he died, the Order of the Faith in Pero ordained Marquis Bell as an honorary archbishop and took an oath to serve anyone in the Bell household as a bishop or higher-ranking priest for the next 100 years. Jamie feels sadness in her behavior. On the other side, Shino is chosen by Zenith and is finally heading to the headquarters. Many people come to say him goodbye. He becomes happy when he sees Ricky and Anna also arrive there. Ricky says he is also coming there soon, so don't go crying in the corner out of loneliness. Then Shino starts his journey with a man of Zenith. After covering some distance, that person says they have reached their destination and says Shino to follow. They reach the basement where Bishop welcomes them. Shino says this is a creepy place and he has to go to headquarters, but Bishop takes him inside, where a man appreciates him and says he got such a fine specimen for the experiment, he will make a very good chimera. The next day, when Lars is visiting various places in Heist along with Jamie, he says there is a place they didn't check out yet. That is the Heist chapter of the Order of the Faith in Zenith. When they reach there, they see Ricky who rushes towards them, but suddenly a horse carriage appears from the side and attacks Ricky. Jamie saves his life, so he says thanks to him. Lars thinks the spell Jamie cast to save Ricky is that of a mage far more powerful than the ones he has traveled with. He is surprised that Jamie has this much magical prowess at such a young age and believes he certainly is a prodigy in a few years. Jamie asks him to come out of his daydreams and go inside the building. They enter orphanage with Ricky, who introduces them to the servant of Pero. When the servant of Pero asks about their reason for arrival, Lars' voice says they had heard the Order of the Faith in Zenith was established in this region this year, and they wanted to check it out. Then they visit the orphanage with Ricky. He also introduces them to Anna, his sister. Jamie becomes shocked to see her, as her entire body is teeming with vicarial powers, especially around her two eyes. This girl Anna, although she is sightless now due to its overwhelming nature, once she awakens the saintly powers, will be able to see even the invisible through the eyes of a god. There's a high chance she will become an annoying adversary in the future. He wishes to kill her, but also thinks a high-ranking priest of the order is probably already aware of her potential, so it may not be wise to kill her right away. After visiting the building, Ricky escorted them to the entrance. He also tells them his friend left for headquarters last night after being chosen. Jamie flashed back memories and asks him different questions, when Ricky tells him he was doing chores and running errands at Reborn. Jamie becomes aware of the dirty plan of Zenith. While leaving, they also meet Bishop, who just arrives there and offers his apologies for being unavailable. When they come out, Jamie tells Lars about what Ricky has told about his friend. Lars laughed and says Jamie seems like a kind-hearted kid. He will surely make a good priest. Jamie explains to him about gang activities. Jamie tells 2 months ago, his father annihilated a criminal gang called Reborn for conducting human trafficking operations on young children, and Ricky also told him he was in Reborn before being accepted to the orphanage. When they arrive home, Lars tells Earl that he didn't know a connection between Reborn and the Order of the Faith in Zenith. Earl says he gave them the freedom to propagate their faith since they have been having a positive influence on the people. Lars says he sensed strong vicarial powers from a man who was behind Bishop, but could not identify from which god his divine power came. Earl says he can sit idly if that is true. He also arranges 3 knights for Lars to investigate further. These knights have been operating in the shadows to protect the Welton household for a long time. They are all well versed in the art of battle. Lars says their movements and aura resemble those of assassins, although they wield long swords. On the other side, Jamie also plans to make some preparations as he will need to cast higher rank spells in the upcoming battles. Azard and Riza are waiting for some suspicious movements to occur. Then suddenly, they are attacked by a vicarial power. They dodge this attack. Azard runs to inform Master Jamie, and soon Jamie arrives there. Jamie uses various spells to kill that person with vicarious powers. He uses a soul bomb spell that creates a large explosion by detonating the souls that have been summoned. Vicarial powers start deteriorating. Jamie says it's a high-level spirited chimera, so he uses a marionette spell that attaches spiritual strings to the enemy to take full control of its movements. He says he placed the debris from the detonated souls in various parts of Chimera's body, so his body is fully under Jamie's control now. Finally, he uses a death bomb spell that causes a deadly explosion that even crushes through the armor, so it got away and falls down. Riza again becomes amazed at Jamie's powers and says it cannot be alright when the enemy got away. But Jamie says once the dark mana is embedded in one's body, it doesn't easily dissipate. When he pierced his flesh with the hand of darkness, the dark mana penetrated the deepest parts of its body, which means he can track him down whenever he wishes to.
On the other side, when Bishop comes to know someone destroyed the pinnacle of experiments, the Chimera Paladin with divine powers, he becomes furious. Bishop says who can have destroyed a high-level Chimera Paladin created by combining 4 different creatures. Just for a moment, he thinks it may be Earl Welton, but then says if it was Earl Welton, this core part would not have escaped like this. Thinking about Jamie, he says it can't be. He's a prodigy, but he's still just a rank 4 mage. One needs the power of rank 5 spells at least to take on the Chimera Paladin. On the other side, Jamie brings the body of Chimera, which is prepared by using vicarial powers. When he examines the body, he finds that the body is well crafted, the legs are made of an insect while internal organs with resistance to fire, compound eyes of a bud, and the human body are used as the base. A combination of these 4 creatures gave it magic resistance as well as the enormous speed at which it escaped. He says whatever the reason behind its creation, it's utterly disgusting. Nothing has changed after all these years. These scoundrels still treat humans as nothing more than dispensable tools. Bishop tells his companion about the whole incident and says the nucleus of the chimera is unharmed, thankfully. So he would carry on his experiment with a new ingredient, which is a faithful servant of Zenith and the only blood relative of the saint. His name is Ricky. The next day, Bishop comes to an orphanage and gathers everyone at place and says he brings wonderful news to the congregation today. God has given yet another divine message. Lord Zenith has chosen another one of the children to be a devout priest, and this time Ricky has been chosen by Lord. On the other side, Sable says to Jamie that the rain seems to be dying down and the sun will come up soon. A servant knocks on the door and says a peasant kid has come claiming to be a friend of Jamie and wants to meet him. Jamie says to send him inside. When Ricky comes, Sable becomes happy to see a friend of Jamie. Then she goes out, leaving them alone for discussion. Ricky tells him he received a call and will be departing Heist soon, so he comes to say goodbye. Jamie becomes shocked to hear it. Ricky also sees Lars there and tells him also. This made Lars surprised, and he thinks that this is how they have been deceiving the orphans. Then he wishes good luck to Ricky and hopes he will become a good priest. After he is gone, Jamie says to Lars they will go after the carriage Ricky gets on. The next morning, Ricky says goodbye to everyone and hugs Anna, and says the brothers and sisters are here to help her, so stay healthy and eat well. When he starts his journey, his horse carriage is followed by Jamie and Lars. There are 3 requirements to create a chimera using vicarial power. First, the victim to be used as the ingredient. Next, the chimera maker that will conduct the experiment. And lastly, a high-ranking priest to bestow the vicarial power. Jamie says there is only one high-ranking priest in the area, and that is the Bishop of Zenith. He leaves Lars and the knights to take off to lab on their own, and he goes to meet a bishop. When Bishop takes Ricky inside the building, Jamie interrupts them. Bishop says he will teach him a lesson for interfering with God's work. The battle sanctuary cast by a bishop would grant him enough power to crush boulders with bare hands. Bishop says he will shatter Jamie into pieces. They fight with each other. Jamie says the sanctuary is being consumed by darkness, and now Bishop is helpless. Soon he falls. Jamie asks him to answer questions, but he refuses. So Jamie examines his brain. On the other side, a man who was waiting for Bishop for a long time asks his servant Lincoln to look for him. Lars, along with 3 knights, come to the lab through a secret entrance, and there they see a lot of books. There a jackpot hit them. Lars says it's a chimera. When Bishop tells Jamie everything about its work, Jamie asks him to go to the Earl's place at once and report what he just said. He rather comes to his master and tells him he got attacked by an intruder. It took him some time to finish him off. He further tells it was the same scum that destroyed the chimera paladin, as he was too powerful to capture alive. Then he hands over the nucleus, which is the core part and contains the divine power, to the person who injected it into the body of Ricky to create the most powerful chimera. While on the other side, Lars and the knights defeated many beasts that came on their way. But the last one is far stronger than the ones before. One knight says he will grab the attention of the beast while they all should get out of there. When Lars refuses to go out, leaving him alone behind, the knight says they sometimes do undesirable things to bring out the best results in favor of the Weltons. They clear out anything that interferes with the master's will, including their own lives. Beast captures one of the knights. Others says Lars to get out of there. But he doesn't become aggrieved for leaving them behind like this, so he attacks the beast to rescue the knight from his captivity. Lars had to release the power of the divine executor. The 7 outstanding paladins were bestowed with special powers by Pyrrho, the goddess of forgiveness and punishment. Although there are severe drawbacks to using this power, while it is in effect, the paladins can command enormous divine power. Finally, the knight came back to life. Lars says that once the power of the executor deactivates, he will be partially inflicted by the damages they have received, as such drawbacks are his consequences to bear. He asks them to move ahead. Jamie interferes with his experiment on Lincoln, who becomes furious and attacks him. Jamie dodges his attack and takes him out of the place and uses his magical spell on him, and says after some time he will become his servant. Lars says to the knights they have only 20 minutes to find the boy. After that, the power will expire. So they must find Ricky before the divine power of the executor subsides. While moving forward, they confront another chimera, who is the hybrid of a demon horse and an ogre. When Ricky comes back to his sense, he gets up and calls for help. There he sees the body of Shino, confined inside a glass box, and then understands that they were supposed to be used in some kind of awful experiment. He says there is no time for grief and decides to get out of there as soon as possible. Before leaving, he says sorry to Shino and promises to come back for him. When he runs, he sees Lars looking for him. He becomes so happy to see him here, but suddenly a chimera attacks him from back. Lars orders the knight to save Ricky from attack. When they save Ricky, Lars says him to go upstairs alone, as he cannot fight while protecting him as well. Ricky becomes agree and says you will be waiting for him there. Then Ricky comes out of that place. There he hears some noise. He moves towards it. There he sees Jamie fighting with another monster, Lincoln. Jamie casts a dark magic spell, Doppelganger. This spell creates a clone that uses the same abilities as the caster, with one drawback: either the clone or the caster disappears the moment they make eye contact with each other. Jamie says to Lincoln that the reason for his failure is that he failed to realize how powerful the adversary he's going up against is. As a result, his body starts decaying. Jamie says a normal person would probably have had a cardiac arrest from the pain by now, but those experiments that he has done with his body are what prolong his suffering. Then he consumes all of his knowledge by holding his hand over his head. There come a few more chimeras. Jamie says he has spent much of his mana in a previous fight. He is surrounded by chimeras on all sides. Ricky gets more nauseous as he gets closer, and he says he is getting the feeling that he needs to be there. While fighting, Jamie feels he doesn't have enough mana to cast a barrier and won't be able to dodge the next attack. When he falls, Ricky arrives there. Jamie stops him from coming there, but he says his body moved on its own. Ricky couldn't bear the spell created by Lincoln and fainted. When Jamie mourns over it, Lincoln says pathetic creatures care for each other. This is the quiet scene. Lincoln then says the aura surrounding Jamie feels different all of a sudden, and this feels dangerous. Jamie uses the first ever special power he ever mastered and calls the Army of the Dead, an army created of unnatural causes to stand against the 12 gods. Lincoln says he can't be defeated by these creatures. Jamie says this is his field on which the dead harvest death. The Gem of Life spells out of Ricky's mouth. The Gem of Life is a magical artifact that grants self-healing power to its owner. Lincoln is shocked and says no wonder this fool wouldn't die after all those attacks. Then blood comes out of Jamie's mouth. He says it's taking a toll on his body. The power of unnatural causes has too many drawbacks at the moment, but he says he can't let Ricky die like this. So he picks up his body. He sees a lady comes who takes Ricky and asks Jamie who is he who dares to attempt to take what is rightfully hers. Lars says Hank's goodness they were able to dispatch the beasts before he ran out of time. The knight asks him if he is alright as he seems hurt. While on the other side, Jamie thinks about who summoned this fool. Even if this is only a vision, she must have paid a heavy price for this. He says the vicarious powers that surround Ricky were that of hers. She tells him that Ricky is on his path to becoming her apostle. The apostles are the closest one to the God they serve. Their very existence grants them a similar status to that of the Pope and the power to crush all evil before them, as the strongest paladin. Jamie says there can only be one apostle serving one god at a time, and he heard it takes a long time to find a new one after one perishes. He further tells her that he has no intentions of killing Ricky. He is a friend of him after all. There is no need for apostles in this world at this moment, as this is a peaceful era in which the wills of the 12 gods are being fulfilled left and right. She hands over Ricky to him and goes back. Ricky asks what happened to his own body. Jamie says he turned him into an undead with the power of his dark magic. In the Order of Faith in Zenith Heist's chapter, Earl Argano comes along with Lars. The servant of the Order of Faith says they are the arbiters that serve the Order of the Faith in Zenith. He apologizes that they are unable to reveal their names given the missions they are assigned with. He tells they had been chasing after heretics at the command of the Order, and Bishop Lincoln was a heretic. They were simply bringing punishment to the one that committed a grave offense within their order, he adds. The era says he is the one that makes decisions within his land. No one else harms another person without his approval in Heist. As they have crossed their limits, he orders them to leave Heist immediately. Lars says he is ruthlessly clever. He didn't even bring up the chimera issue. He simply emphasized his rights as the lord of his estate rather than theories that are difficult to prove. The servant of Order of Faith in Zenith requests Earl to reconsider his words, but Ear says he will not go back on his words as they have lost his trust. After some time, the Order of Faith in Zenith paid a huge sum of money as compensation and left the area. Lars comes to see Ricky and Anna and says he will have the honor of escorting both of them to Upton. While enjoying tea time with mother and sister, Jamie wishes to visit mother's family in Upton. He expresses his love for his mother when she says they were already scheduled to travel to Upton next week. Lars comes there and tells Jamie that Ricky and Anna will be leaving with him to Upton. He further says Ricky and Anna will never forget about him and their friendship will never die. Then Lars hugs him and goes back. Jamie took 2 full days to absorb the power with the gem because of the breakdown process, but it's working much better than he expected. He becomes happy that he will be a rank 6 mage in no time at this pace. He informs Azard and Riza about his departure to the Upton. Then he takes them to their new home, which is his warehouse for undead soldiers. Azard says the inside of the warehouse is quite amazing, and it's more spacious compared to his expectations. Jamie tells them this place is entirely created by his powers, and undead creatures that reside inside the space absorb his powers that form the place and grow stronger. The next day, before leaving, Earl Argano hugs him and advises him to take care of his mother, sister, and friends. Zach O'Brien, the Grandmaster of the Fear Knights, briefly explains to them the schedule for their journey before their departure. Ricky says he wishes Lars was inside the carriage with them as well, but he volunteered for the escort position. Sir Bell says Sarah always falls asleep as soon as she gets in the carriage. It's so cute. They start their journey. Lars says he will be on the lookout in the rear. When Sarah wakes up, Ricky introduces himself to her. 2 days later, when it starts raining outside, Lars says isn't it boring to stay inside the carriage the whole time? He has a story to share if they would like. He then tells them the story and says there is a myth about the Maitreyan mountains that they are passing through right now. This happened a long, long time ago when the dragons were still soaring through the skies and the elves resided in the mountains. The Maitreyan mountains were back then just a single large mountain. It was a peaceful time when 2 dragons appeared in the area. The evil-natured black dragon and the good-natured blue dragon called Maitre. Maitre fell in love with the human mage. The dragon clan was absolutely furious at the idea of a dragon falling in love with a human and sent a black dragon to kill the human mage. The battle was so fierce that the large mountain was divided into many mountains and torrential waterways were created. After a long fight, Maitre and the human mage finally drove away the black dragon, but the mage, the blue dragon's lover, lost his life in the battle. It is said that Maitre, the blue dragon, still resides somewhere deep in the mountains, mourning the loss of her lover. Anna says she heard that ever since then it has been raining frequently in this area. Lars says that is why the bards call the heavy rain in this area the dragon's tears. Suddenly, their carriage gets disturbed due to heavy rain, a lightning strike on the carriage, and they all become frightened. Jamie tries to cast the flying spell but fails and falls into the water near the mountains. Lars promises Sable to bring his son alive to her in 3 hours. When Jamie falls down, he sees a dragon in front of him and thinks she is even willing to kill him if she has to. Jamie asks her why she kidnapped him. When she refuses to answer him, he says she must be the blue dragon, Maitre. The blue dragon is the most gentle species out of all dragons. They are especially amiable to humans in the same way that humans are amiable to cats and dogs. She says she would use him as an ingredient so she could probably conjure up a Spartaway of a master rank. Jamie thinks his life is in danger here, so he decides to come up with a strategy. He says might want to kill him because of the human mage that she once loved. Then he says she can't kill him as she is a kind dragon, unlike other dragons. These words of Jamie remind her of the words of the human mage who she loved. After knowing that Jamie knows a lot about her, she starts telling her story and says it was about 700 years ago she fell in love with Ganon, a dark mage. He was a kind-hearted mage that achieved rank 9 as a human being. They were happy together until the Dragon Lord commanded other dragons to kill him. They got away from the chasers and hid in the depths of these mountains, and then Ganon died. Then the clan started wiping out every single trace of Ganon from history because they wanted to keep this truth hidden from the rest of the world. She says she is here just to protect the little things Ganon left. Then she takes him to Ganon's grave as Jamie requests to pay homage to him. He becomes shocked by the bracelet on Ganon's grave. It is a shell of absolute immunity, one of 3 divine magical artifacts that Diablo Volpir created to aid in the battle against the 12 gods. When he inquires about the bracelet, Maitre says it was Ganon's and had amazing power. It saved his life more than a few times when he was alive. She also says he had left some records, including a journal. When Jamie requests to see it, she takes him with her to where the journal is. She says it will not actually be of any practical use because Jamie won't be able to open it as it is sealed and can't be broken by a human mage. But he opens it through a dark aura and reads it. This journal contains all secrets about their love and also some information about the memorial stone. He also finds a hidden truth that reveals how humans fell slaves to the 12 gods some 60,000 years ago. Jamie says the human race will again be free and prosper as he will do all efforts for this. Maitre becomes sad and wishes to go back to that time and spend time with him again. Then she asks him about his dark aura. Jamie says it's just a simple dark magic spell. He further tells him that he is a mage that shares Ganon's legacy. When she says everything Ganon left is here in this place, then how can he share his legacy when he has never even seen him? Jamie says of course he never recovered anything from him directly, but he seeks to walk the same path that Ganon had walked in the past, so in that sense he can say he shares his legacy. Maitre says as Ganon despised the 12 gods and the dragons that agreed with them, if Jamie seeks to walk the same path as he, then it will lead to an impossible mission. Each of the 12 gods can withstand the entire clan of dragons, and there are 12 of them, so he should heed her advice and live the life of a normal human. But Jamie refuses to give up and says he will fight against 12 gods. She gives that bracelet to him and promises to be by his side to help him. Jamie says her thanks as a promise made by a dragon is something great. When Jamie comes outside, he sees Lars looking for him. Everyone becomes so delighted to see him. They all are warmly welcome in Earl Pierre's mansion. Sable pays thanks for great hospitality. After that, Jamie comes outside and says there's nothing interesting around here. While going back, he feels 2 people are following him. Suddenly, someone pulls him inside the building. Jamie becomes angry and says how dare she meddle in his affairs. When he uses dark magic, the girl whose name is Bena requests him to stop this. He says it looks like she's a user of dark magic, so why does she attack him all of a sudden? She calls him so mean as she was simply trying to help him. She only stepped in because she thought he was going to get kidnapped by those dark mages. Jamie says she is in the same school as those fools and she saved him from them by using the warp portal that she stole from her school. She says it's true and she saved him because she couldn't let them conduct terrible human experiments on a young child like him. Jamie builds an invisible wall around her and asks her to answer a few more questions as it is her last chance. Otherwise, once he enters her brain using dark mana, there may be no turning back. She tells him she lost her parents 10 years ago and was forced to become a dark mage. She was terrified of the experiments that took away the lives of living creatures, and her colleagues mocked her and trampled on her for being soft, but she still couldn't muster up the courage to run away. She requests him to be her teacher as she cannot want such a kind life anymore. Jamie disappears from there. Bena says she must find him quickly and get him to safety. Suddenly, her fellow Hilla grabs her and says she is slow and useless as always. Hilla says Bena would be punished for being late and disobeying her. Bena says sorry and promises not to disobey again. Jamie arrives there and asks Bena not to be terrified of this loser. Hilla says after killing this intruder, she will kill Bena too for bringing in an outsider. When Bena gets Jamie's support, she says she doesn't want to be someone be fit for a terrible place like this. She no longer wishes to live this way. Jamie appreciates her and says it's always the first step that is the hardest. The next one shouldn't be too difficult. An old man named Gab, who is the director of her school, becomes happy to see that finally, Bena has awakened the power of the Valkyrie. Valkyrie is a tribe of notable fairies also known as the bellicose fairs. They once had the power and the valor to even wage war against the 12 gods themselves. Although they lost the fight, it is said that their remnants hid in remote places that the sights of the 12 gods should not reach. Jamie says it's probably the work of Gab, who had put her under tremendous pressure to subdue her tenacity. When Bena says she is not the same as before, Jamie appreciates her. All fellows of Bena come towards her and ask why she goes against them. Jamie tells her that none of them are acting on their own will. They're all brainwashed. They probably have been slaves to their director without minds of their own for quite some time now. Everything they did to her thus far was all the director's doing. He asks her to pull herself together to go and pay them back. She uses her powers to fight with them. After some time, Jamie uses the Violet Spike spell and all of them become faint. Gab comes there and says Jamie seems to possess incredible power, so he would like to make an offer. He says as he is working on a plan, should it come to fruition, they could easily rule over an entire kingdom. Jamie refuses to accept his offer. When Bena asks him the reason for all this, he tells him that he can sense tremendous vitality from within her body. To harvest the power she has awakened, he had to devise ways to completely subdue her tenacious nature. He says he even created this facility center just for her. Now all he has left to do now is bring to life the dark aura that she has been imbued with for over 10 years. Jamie interrupts him and says he just got rid of all the dark aura imbued within her body just now. Gab becomes violent when Jamie calls him a worthless piece of garbage that can't become a rank 7 mage. Gab says he is a master of mind-affecting spells. Jamie observes he is so skillful enough to directly involve himself in the mental realm. He then uses the curse of dark projectiles, but it is reflected. It's quite a high-level dark magic spell. Gab casts Aesthetics of Stillness and says Jamie will enter the state of eternal stillness in a fraction of a second. He says this is the ultimate curse that none other than he, Master of Curses, created. With this powerful spell, the wall that separates him from rank 7 should break. But when Jamie breaks his spell of Aesthetics of Stillness, he falls down and becomes shocked and inquires how he breaks his spell. Jamie says it's all because of the shell of absolute immunity. Moreover, Jamie says he won't let him die a peaceful death because he has committed a grave crime out of tremendous greed. He will become a being that is neither dead nor alive. He will continuously die little by little, yet fail to ever die completely. Jamie says from now on, Gab will be his humble servant forever. He then gives him a new identity with the name Neblo. Jamie then says to Bena it's a fitting end to someone that made her go through a living hell for the past 10 years. Bena again requests him to be his teacher. She uses a transformation spell and becomes Pink Squirrel and says she will live with him now. When he comes back, he meets his grandfather, who becomes so elated to meet him finally and tells him that he has been waiting to meet him in person for a long time. At night, while talking to Sears Bell, grandfather says he has seen a glimpse of the power that Jamie harnesses. He is really astounding, and in the future, the entire world will revolve around Jamie. She says yes, she and Earl are well aware of his hidden talent, and she is so relieved that she can finally offer something to protect her boy as a mother, but she is worried about the Earl. As Earl made an enemy of the Order of the Faith in Zenith, so she is worried they may cause harm to their son any time. Bena transforms into a human when Jamie absorbs mana. Jamie reprimands her and warns her not to alter her form. She claims that maintaining that form is quite unpleasant. In order to avoid being seen, he instructs her to change back into a squirrel. Jamie suddenly senses a powerful strength. It appears to be bloodlust and claims to be coming from the area where Mother is. When he spots an unknown individual, Beryl, he rushes to his mother. Beryl then informs Sears Bell and his father that he set up this scenario to test the Welton family heir because he had been hearing good things about him. Beryl Onyx is also known as the Storm. He is one of the only 5 sword masters in the Kingdom of Seldom. He says he simply appealed to his senses a little by making his presence known only to him. When Jamie pays respect to him, he suggests Jamie learn to wield a sword. Sear Bell says he is already walking the path of a mage. Beryl says he is well aware of it, but if Jamie picks up sword fighting as well, he will become even greater after all. The blood of Earl Welton runs in his veins too. Jamie says he wishes to focus on magic for the time being. In the evening, Jamie visits the garden of the Great Bell household, which is so beautifully and perfectly maintained. When he is sitting on the bank of the pond, a huge creature Torque attacks him. A man protects him and says he heard about the arrival of honored guests from the Weltons, but other businesses had kept him occupied until now. He introduces himself as Sable, an advisor to Marquis Bell. Sable then goes to Marquis Bell and tells him he discovered a group of creatures presumed to be demons but lost traces of them, regretfully. The news about the lesser demons is spreading to regions neighboring the estate. Marquis says about 50 years ago, his father disbanded a mob of demons by killing their leader. They probably held a grudge against his household ever since then. He further says the demons will be wiped out from the world once again. Sable then tells him that he rescued Jamie when he was attacked by a Torque. Then they come to visit Jamie and ask about his health. After all this, Jamie comes out of the house to visit Apton again. He wonders to see the empty streets of Apton, where he sees an old lady and asks her about the building of the Order of the Faith in Pero. When he moves ahead, he sees people gathered at a place. He approaches there and finds a dead body without a heart. He knows the heart is usually used in the ritual to summon demons from the underworld. Jamie assumes demons want revenge against the Bell household, which also means the Order of the Faith in Pero is also in grave danger. He becomes invisible and reaches near the building of the Faith in Pero. He sees a man with many vicarial powers and assumes he must be one of the only 3 archbishops in the entire order. He also sees Lars with him. Ricky, sitting with Anna, also observes the presence of Jamie. He takes Jamie to a perfect place where no one can see them, and that place is the Archbishop's office. He says the Archbishop is a good man, he won't say anything. Jamie asks him how he was able to sneak up on him like that, undetected. Ricky says that's because they are within the area graced by the goddess. Although he hasn't fully realized the power of the apostle yet, here, he feels as though his powers are somewhat complete. After some time, Ricky says the goddess wanted to speak to Jamie, so allow him to deliver her message. Jamie feels Ricky looks different now than before, and goddess's presence is embodied in his body as if he is incarnating her. Ricky delivers the message that a detestable demonic power is being awakened, and Jamie must head to the dark forest. That is the very source of everything, as he will find something useful there. He must stop them before it's too late. Then she's gone from his body. Ricky says he feels a little better now. Jamie says she only stated her business and left without hearing what he has to say. Jamie ponders what might be the reason that she is asking him for help instead of a believer in Pero, which is found in abundance in this estate. Ricky responds she asked for help because it's something only Jamie can handle. When he comes back, Sable tells him Archbishop Saphira is visiting today. He advises him that when he goes out for daily strolls, he must avoid going there again as that place is really dangerous. Jamie then meets his mother and asks about her relationship with Beryl. She tells him that he first saw him when she was just 7 years old. He came with his father to meet Lord Marquis, and she holds his hand and says she will show her butterflies to him. Then they went into a garden while plucking apples. She falls down from a tree. That was quite fun. Time passed and they became friends. 3 years later, after the head of the Onyx household took his own life, House Onyx met its downfall. Then her father asks him to live with them in their mansion forever. After that incident, Beryl devoted himself to sword training in order to take revenge with his own hands. One day, Earl Welton came to meet Marquis when she met him. During the meeting, Father tells her that Earl Welton is notorious for his skills in swordship. Some already say he is next in line to become the Grandmaster Swordsman. After some time, Beryl proposed to her and said he thought she was in love with him as well, and she was the only person he cared about. She says the Beryl she once knew and thought of as her own brother was not like this. He never listened to what she said and tried to control her all the time. When they were talking to each other, Earl Welton came there and stops Beryl from harassing her. Beryl challenged him to a fight, which he accepted. Sears Bell narrates the whole incident to her father and requests to stop them. But when they fought, Beryl lost to Earl, and it is informed to Lord Marquis that Beryl departed in the middle of the night. 3 years later, when she had got married to Earl Welton, one day Earl tells him that Beryl had become a swords master, and it appears that he took revenge on the 3 houses that caused the downfall of House Onyx. Then they are informed about the arrival of Archbishop Saphira. They meet him and pays their respect to him. When Archbishop goes to meet Lord Marquis, Sears Bells also says Jamie not to go outside on its own again. He tells also Sable and advise him not to go near Marine Forest. Sears Bell shows her Marine Forest that can be seen from their place. Jamie asks what is so dangerous about Marine Forest. Sears tells there are 6 most dangerous places in the world that are off limits to everyone. One of them, the Great Forest of Arizard, happens to be just across Marine Forest. To be precise, Marine Forest is actually a part of the Great Forest. Jamie thinks there is a high chance that Marine Forest is the dark forest Para mentioned. At night, Jamie comes to the dark forest where he feels he can't seem to use his dark mana. Bena also arrives behind him, which made him aggressive. Bena says he should not lose his concentration here, like a fool, as he has arrived here at the request of Goddess. When they move ahead, they feel some kind of jerks and fell. Jamie says he will be toast if he fell at this speed. After covering a distance, they see a building. Bena becomes excited to see its open gate. On the other side, while patrolling, security guards see another dead body without a heart in the streets of Apton. One of them goes to report Lord Sable. Other one says from the looks of a dead body, this person's been dead for about 4 to 5 hours at least, and it is lying on the streets where soldiers patrol and pass by frequently during their shifts. Then how come nobody has ever reported to him before? He says he should check the guard duty shift scheduled for this area. Suddenly, he is attacked by a demon who pulls out his heart. Bena asks Jamie if he is all right. He tells her he is recovered now by using the Gem of Life. They saw a gigantic armored knight with buffed magic resistance who automatically triggered a multi-firing trap earlier. They are also attacked by an endless rush of war scorpions. But now finally they reach a place where a giant teddy bear is sleeping. When they come close, the teddy bear opens its eyes and attacks them. Jamie says his ribcages are probably fractured and is surprised to see it speaks human language. Bena says he will be alright as he has a Gem of Life, but Bear says it is of no use as he already blocked the source of those powers. He also says they defiled his forest and dared to step into this ruin. So for such heinous acts, proper punishment is in order. He further tells there is a dark aura that surrounds and protects the detestable demon egg. He thinks that the dark aura belongs to Jamie, but Jamie says he came here to rid this place of that foul stuff as requested by the goddess Pero. Bear warns him and says if he is proved to be lying, and thus committed blasphemy, a divine punishment would have immediately come upon him. Jamie tells him that he is not a follower of Pero, he only made a deal with her, so he is here to honor it. She asked him to head to the dark forest and to stop the detestable demonic power from being awakened. Then Bena requests Bear to tell about details of the demonic egg and the power surrounding it. Bear tells them that it was about a month ago when the demon egg appeared in the forest. He went to get rid of that foul thing, but the dark aura was protecting it. He tried everything but still couldn't break the barrier. He further tells us to block off the source of the dark power. Someone has to be inside this place to operate that function. There was no one to go crush that egg while he stayed here. He tells his name is Theberon. Then Jamie asks him to stop the obstruction of power and let them go because he wants to see the egg with his own eyes. Bena says he must trust them, and once the master Jamie regains his powers, he will take care of the demon egg in no time. When Theberon unblocked his powers, Jamie attacks back him and says no one can control or stop him, and now he will seize control of this place. He set himself as the vice administrator of the place and asks Theberon not to chase after him as it would be of no use. On the other side, 9 more dead bodies are found just overnight in Apton. Lord Marquis asks about advisor Sable, and he is then informed that no one here has seen Sable since last night, while Sable is standing on the top of a building and waiting for a group of divine executors who are coming from the headquarters at the request of Lord Marquis. When Jamie and Bena come out of the place, they see Jamie's dark mana surrounding something on which different statements are written, which are from his grimoire. When Bena asks if he discovered something, he says yes and gives her a ring. It's a magical artifact he took from the ruins and asks her to extend her mana into the ring. With a strong will, he uses powers. There they see Pipsqueak, who is a follower of Zenith. Jamie asks the reason for her presence here. She refuses to tell and says she will kill Bena because she has pink hair and gigantic sledgehammer, 2 of that which she despises the most in the world. She fights with Bena and casts a curse of pain, which Bena breaks with her dark magic. Then she attacks with a different kind of curse, which makes Bena exhausted and senseless. Jamie observes Pipsqueak feels a lot stronger and looks like a warrior capable of wielding as many vicarial powers as a bishop. She says if Jamie is a dark mage too, then she will crush his skulls with her own hands. Jamie says he is going to set her up with a blind date, so he calls Nebula there. He also calls Riza and Ezard there. Jamie says they all will see the coming of a demon with their own eyes soon. Another fellow of Pipsqueak comes there and hopes the egg is safe. He says the captain will kill him if things go wrong after all this work. They all feel the presence of a monster there. On the other side, Apostle Ricky and St. Anna are asked to evacuate and get themselves somewhere safe. Lord Marquis is also informed that something is going on in Marine Forest. He orders to summon the soldiers, then Sears Bell arrives and tells him that she can't find Jamie anywhere. She suspects he has gone into the Marine Forest. In the forest, Reza says to Jamie they should get out of there as soon as they can. He asks them to take Bena with them and run as far away as possible from here and make sure to get to a place where the demonic aura won't reach. After they have gone, Jamie moves to a monster. He says he is a Lyrda, a baron of the great underworld. Jamie says he is at least in master rank. Vera says Jamie has got a pretty neat bracelet over there. If he hands it over to him, in return he will grant Jamie a peaceful death. When Jamie refuses to give it, he asks Jamie to try his best to stand his ground then. When Bena comes to her sense, he inquires about Jamie. Azur tells her he's probably going up against that terrible manner of the beast in the forest. Bena says she would be there as she can't let her master fight alone. Then they see a huge explosion in the place where Jamie is fighting. Suddenly a voice comes from a sledgehammer and it says that Bena has not realized her full potential yet, but now she's allowed to use the hammer's powers today. It further says it is called Filion and was crafted by the greatest blacksmith to be wielded by the queen of her people, so she must hold it in her hands and wreak havoc. On the other side, Jamie says he doesn't even have enough mana to keep himself levitating anymore as he has lost much blood. He can be survived only if Gem of Life has just a little more energy, or if he has a little bit of time to summon Black to cast a high-ran spell one last time. Soon, Bena arrives there to protect him. Lord Marquess with soldiers moves towards forest in search of Jamie when he receives a letter from Beryl Onyx, who says please do not let anyone deeper into the forest, as it will only mean more deaths in vain. And he will take care of the demon himself. Sable arrives in front of the Archbishop and asks about Apostle. He is told that they have gone and Archbishop requests him to leave peacefully if he has the slightest respect for the goddess. He tells the Archbishop that he is a follower of the Order of Faith in Zenith and would kill him. May the tip of the sword bring eternal rest upon him. Today the goddess shall lose all she once had and abdicate from her position. In the forest, Beryl rescued Jamie and asks him the reason for coming here. He says curiosity got the better of him since everyone was telling him not to go in the forest. He says he didn't expect to see a demon. When Jamie says he thought Beryl had left on a journey, Beryl says he has been watching his every move since the beginning. When Theberon asks about Beryl, he introduces himself as a seeker of the hidden truth of the world and tells him he is here to take the item that is kept here by Isias's will. He requests Theberon to open the gate to Gremia and let him in. Theberon says he is unable to open the gate because he is currently not set as the administrator of Gremia and then asks Jamie to set him as the administrator. When Jamie did this, the gate opens and they enter a new place where they see an old man known as Armin, who was a genius magical artifact craftsman and a rank 9 mage, a feat accomplished by very few throughout history. He tells that he and Isias had a special kind of friendship and he was in the custody of Graham the Thunderblade as per her request. He hands over Gremia to Jamie and says it is a magical artifact that can exist in the form of any structure and its shape and purpose are determined by the willpower of its user. He granted him full authority over the entire artifact. When Lars reaches, the Archbishop is near death. He asks Lars to protect Apostle Ricky and St. Anna. After coming out of that place, Jamie tells Theberon that he met Armin's spirit and received the artifact of Gremia. Beryl says Jamie to head back now as her mother is probably worried sick about him. Jamie says he can feel that Ricky, the apostle of the goddess, is in grave danger, so they must hurry and find him. A knight comes back from reconnaissance duty and tells Lord Marquess that the demonic aura has disappeared completely, and a group of lesser demons had appeared within the estate wreaking havoc and terrorizing the good citizens of the land according to an urgent report. Marquess says it's his fault that he has underestimated the demon worshippers. The knight also tells him that Archbishop has been murdered and the witnesses saw Sable at the scene of the crime. On the other side, Lars saved Ricky and Anna, but Sable arrives there. Sable attacks Lars, which he dodged. Sable says this world consists of phenomenal individuals beyond his imagination, and he is considered one of the more gifted among such individuals. When he attacks again, Lars attacks him back and says he is not different from him, when it's the very power of a god. Jamie and Beryl arrive there and ask Ricky to show Sable what he got. He tells him he had to step in because it looked like they were in grave danger. Lars tells them it's Sable who was the one that caused all this. Both of them become shocked to hear that Advisor Sable was a spy of Zenith. Beryl asks everyone to back out and let him handle this. He says to Sable that the fierce blades of the storm will slice him to pieces anyways. When Lars tells Sable is an expert in a reversal of causality skill, Jamie says if he can use it for defense as well as offense, who knows how many ways in which he can utilize the skill. When the goddess barrier is created around Ricky, Sale says he is not the only one that serves and is graced by a divine. Sable attacks Ricky and says his attempt to rest is futile. Jamie asks Gremia to release his powers. Sable says it's nothing but child's play. Jamie says this power is created to annihilate those like him. Suddenly Sable casts a spell. They all feel their powers are dissipating and feel senseless. When they come back to their senses, they see Sable is about to attack Jamie. Jamie feels he won't move his body. Suddenly, a ray of light comes from somewhere. When Jamie wakes up, he finds himself on a bed. Her mom says if ever he does this again, she will not forgive him. He asks her how all did this happen. He was on a battlefield, then how did he come here? Her mother tells the magical artifact that he wore around his neck was given by his grandmother, and this artifact helped him in time of need. Sable finds himself in the southern continent Brian in a desolate desert more than 6,000 miles away from Apton, and thinks how could he have been teleported to the southern continent from up north. He recalls his memories when he was fighting. A woman came and asks him not to hurt her child, and she also touched him, and said she will have to send him somewhere very, very far away. He then says he must go out of there before anyone could see him. While running, he sees Blazer in front of him, who asks the reason for his arrival here. Blazer is a highest-ranking priest and Grandmaster of the Holy Knights in service of the Order of the Faith in Ra, the God of the Sun. At the funeral of Archbishop Saphira, Ricky says to Jamie that Lord Peril wants to speak to him. While going, he asks about Sable. Ricky tells him he disappeared along with a flash of light that came from Jamie's pendant. When they reach there, the goddess expresses her gratitude firstly and says she is elated to have delivered a blow to that bastard Zenith, thanks to his help. Then she says she will tell him the details of 12 gods, since it looks like he is not trying to mock her here. She tells him Zenith, Lily, and Bremen are on the same side. Dryad and Kulin have teamed up on another side. Tantaras and Arbella join forces together, while Zillion allied with Oblivion. Ra, Flame Emperor, and she is alone with no allies. The Flame Emperor was never one to join forces with someone else, and Ra is more like the ruling deity presiding over the others. Jamie says that doesn't sound like she is in a really difficult situation, if that's all there is to it. She says it's all because of bastard Zenith. He had been a loyal dog to Ray, but started devising schemes against her after his master abandoned him. He was aiming to take her powers so that he could go up against RA. When Jamie says it's difficult for him to have complete faith in her, at the moment she puts her finger on his forehead and she would give him something in return. Then she asks him to check the palm of her left hand, where she gave him the sign of her promise. He has been appointed a saint. The saint is chosen by God. The saint bears a mark on his or her body and is in the rank of a bishop within the order. His entire family became happy on his appointment as saint. They come to meet Beryl. Sears Bell thanks Beryl for saving her son's life. Jamie says he is curious about this ISRS person who leads a group of powerful warriors like him. Beryl says she's a great person. He will introduce Jamie to her. Time passed quickly since the demon ritual incident. Ricky and Anna were transported to the headquarters of the Order of the Faith in Pero to receive training as clerics within the order and for better protection. And the Weltons departed the estate of Apton to return to Heist. Instead of Sir Lars, who left with Ricky and Anna to headquarters, Sir Arak accompanied them to serve as an intermediary between the Weltons and the Order of Faith in Pero. About 2 weeks later, when they reach Heist, Earl Welton greets them well. The next day, Jamie enters the training grounds and says his father that he wants to learn how to use a sword.
Thank you, friends, for joining us on this exciting adventure in the world of Manhwa in today's Manhwa recap. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on every exciting episode.